You let your guard down. You cannot help but look. Ah! I'm quite serious, you know. Get ready to swim. Ah! Behold my breaststroke!
Finally, I get to talk about Firesweep Axe Summer Innes. Yes, I have been waiting for this moment for so long, and I don't have to complain about the lack of a Firesweep Axe ever again. Back when Summer Innes first appeared, he was already a rather unique unit. He was a fast flying axe unit with somewhat decent attack to boot. If you look at our selection of flying axe units, this archetype just does not exist. It's ridiculous, especially when you compare it to the legion of fast lance flyers in the game. Part of that is probably just following the regular Fire Emblem games where axe flyers are wyvern riders and wyverns are the slower counterparts to the Pegasus Knights. Still, this game has 40 speed arm units, so I wouldn't mind if we bend the rules a little for the sake of variety. Since Summer Innes' release last year, there has only been one axe flyer added to the game, and that was Har, who is on the slow side of things. If you want to see how many axe flyers even have more than 30 speed, it's real sad. This is it. New Year's Azura is a dancer, and Minerva is a 5-star flyer since the start of the game. Camilla was the only common unit, and even she isn't that offensive, especially compared to the Lance Flyer group, who has had Cordelia since the very start, and you got tons of good options now like Shigure, Cynthia, or Sigrun. Summer Innes has a great 33 attack and 37 speed stat line, and he is the best Firesweep Axe flyer you're gonna get. Hopefully that changes in the future. With Garrick being introduced with the Firesweep Axe, I knew what I wanted to do, and after more than a year-long wait, Firesweep Axe Summer Innes was a reality. This has made me really happy, and just using him even with the basic Firesweep build has been a ton of fun. It's pretty much just adding Life and Death 3 for that extra +5 attack and speed. I made a video talking about Firesweep flyers in the past and how to build them, but things have changed with the addition of new skills, so I wanted to sort of discuss what options Firesweep builds have in general these days. Sadly, some of the more interesting options are not available for flyers, and we'll discuss that in the later half of this video. If you manage to snag a spare Garrick, or if the Firesweep Axe becomes easier to get in the future, here are some speedy candidates for you to choose from. I did not include Picnic Felicia because she is an armored unit, but if you can make it work with that one movement, then go right on ahead. Looking at this list, it may become apparent why the Firesweep Axe wasn't in the game in the first place. These are our fastest axe units in the game currently, but 5 out of 7 of them were only added within the last 6 months. To be fair, right behind these guys are units like Raven and Legion, who can definitely run the Firesweep Axe, but maybe they wanted to introduce some faster units to make the weapon more appealing. I still mention it every time, but it blows my mind that Commander Anna still has the highest base speed out of all axe units. Obviously she can't get merges or a speed boon, but it's just nuts that there has not been a faster axe unit in almost 3 whole years. Anna is going to be held back by her low base attack, so understandably giving her this rare weapon might not be the best choice. Currently the best user is going to be Hilda with a godly 37 attack and speed spread, but she has her own unique axe that is pretty strong. Summer Innes has the speed but not the raw attack compared to some of these other units. However, he is the only flying option, and flyer mobility is a lot of fun, especially with hit and run Firesweep weapons. Next up, you got Garrick, the current only wielder of the Firesweep Axe by default. The man even has Darting Blow 4, so you're gonna pass that along too when inheriting this axe. After him is Ozian, but Ozian has the Vouge and a pretty enemy phase kit by default. Still, he's not a bad choice if you want to make it work. At the bottom, we have our easier to get options. Summer Ilger is a fantastic unit with a solid attack and speed spread, even if she can't get boons. If you want a plus attack or plus speed boon, then Echidna is there, and she was demoted this year. It's been a pretty good back half of the year for axe infantry units, so take your pick. From now on, I'll be planning to use my Summer Innes a lot more now. I got a plus speed one, and he is one fast boy. I was doing my arena assault runs yesterday, and sometimes a good Firesweep user plus dancer combo just completely saves the day. Same applies to dazzling staff units, and honestly, being able to just avoid all the dumb units and builds you run into makes these weapons very satisfying to use. Besides finding a unit with good attack and speed, building for these weapons isn't that complicated as well. The budget option is just life and death, and you can just toss in a B skill like drag back or hit and run. Pretty easy when all we really need is more attack and speed. Maybe plop on Heavy Blade or Flashing Blade for some Gale Force strats, and that's about it. Well, since the early days of Firesweep weapons, things have gotten a bit crazier. For example, staff units can grab Dazzling Staff to emulate the Firesweep effect, and they can tack on extra effects as well. We also keep getting better and better A skills than just Life and Death, and even our B skill options have improved. Let's now talk about some of the newer builds Firesweep units can choose to run. First, we got some new shiny yellow A skills. Before we get to that, I think it has to be said that attack and speed solo has become a top tier skill, and it's great on Firesweep units too. Getting +6 attack and speed just for being alone is easy when you initiate combat, and it can be active on both phases. This is an issue for Swift Sparrow and Life and Death since the first doesn't do anything on the enemy phase, and the latter has that -5 defense and res penalty. Obviously, the boon to Firesweep weapons is that you can just avoid those negatives completely if you can save your attackers. Speaking of which, we got the tier 4 upgrades for our 2 older skills. So Sparrow 3 is a huge +6 attack and +7 speed when initiating, and Life and Death 4 is a flat +7 attack and 7 speed with that -5 defense and res penalty. Both are incredible skills, and they just are straight up upgrades to their predecessors. A new competitor is attack and speed push 4, which is real good, especially if you aren't fighting long battles. If you're above 25% HP, you get that +7 attack and speed, but take 5 recoil damage after a fight. Similar to Life and Death, in an ideal situation, if we avoid any attacks with Firesweep, then who cares about that damage, and you can even use Brazen attack and speed too. If you do drop below 25% HP, then the skill is useless though, so it's not without its risk. Another interesting A skill option is the new Heavy Blade 4 and Flashing Blade 4 skills. These work the same, but also add on 5 true damage per hit when they activate. Is it worth it to use these skills instead of using an attack boosting A skill? Well, on the plus side, true damage is always nice. I'm using Heavy Blade 4 in these clips because I don't have Flashing Blade 4, but going for the higher speed build with Flashing Blade probably is a better idea. If Flashing Blade 4 is active, there's a decent chance you are outspeeding the enemy, so you can score that double and get 2 procs of the true damage. With Sacred Seals, you can use something like Darting Blow, and as we will discuss in a bit, the possibility of a certain new Sacred Seal could make using Flashing Blade 4 on Firesweep users a much more viable path. Many Firesweep builds are great with either Flashing or Heavy Blade as seals, but if we can swap them into the A slot with their tier 4 variants and still get some extra attack and speed with our Sacred Seal, then that would be amazing. The most interesting additions have to be some of the newer B skills. We got Null Sea Disrupt this year, and it's actually the counter to Firesweep and Dazzling Staff effects. However, there is actually a strange interaction if you use Null Sea Disrupt with a Firesweep weapon. It actually disables the penalty that prevents your unit from counterattacking, but you still can prevent the enemy from countering like normal. This is a very strange combo, and I can't say I've run into it much at all. Basically, you can have a unit dish out free hits on the player phase, but still be able to retaliate on the enemy phase. Is that worth a whole B skill? Well, if a Vanish meta were ever to rise up as fierce as it was in the early days, then maybe so. A newer skill type from this year are the lull skills. These are great for Firesweep builds because they grant combative power, and a variant like lull speed and defense works nicely. You lower the enemy's speed a little and negate their speed buffs to make it easier to get a follow-up attack. You can also lower their defense to do more damage. Low attack and speed also deserves a mention because it can be helpful if you have a unit that wants to proc Heavy Blade. You won't lower the enemy's defense, but if, for example, you really need Heavy Blade to activate for your build to work, then it's an option. Special Spiral is a fun B skill, and since many Firesweep users already use Heavy or Flashing Blade, you can dip into the higher cooldown specials. A brand new option is Close Call 3, and this is a weird one. While normally Firesweep builds are all about damage, Close Call can provide some defensive power. In fact, if you use Hit and Run, then this is an upgrade, and since most Firesweep users want to be fast, it works out nicely. It's disappointing that it can only be used on infantry Firesweep users because this could be a really annoying setup. You got a weapon that prevents counterattacking, and when you try to whack them on the enemy phase, they can possibly have up to 40% damage reduction. If you can't take them out in one phase, they get to attack freely again on the next turn. Considering Roderick got a unique Firesweep Lance, I can imagine Soleil possibly getting one too, and she would be a pretty ideal candidate for a build like this if Refine added extra speed or something. Definitely a fun one to think about. I think the most tragic thing about these new B skills is that Firesweep Flyers cannot use any of them. It's kind of sad really, and it's a reason why Legendary Ryoma makes for such a good Firesweep Sword Flyer because he has Bushido in that B slot. They have started to be more lenient on skills for Cavaliers this year, and I hope they start to do the same for Flyers besides just giving them pure mobility perks. For C skills, we got a ton of self-buffing skills, and these are great options if you don't want to bring a buffing teammate. Wave buffs are great, but a little inconsistent. Rouse buffs currently don't have an attack and speed version, but you can imagine it's going to happen eventually, and these are nice since they work well on solo units. Again, I feel like Flyers should be able to use this skill type, but they cannot. One buff they can use is the ult type buffs, and well, what do you know, Legendary Celica has brought us attack and speed ult as a variant. Perfect for any Firesweep user and great for a Flyer emblem team that sticks together. A really interesting C skill we got this year is Times Pulse 3. This works on infantry units, however I really like the idea that this skill acts like a pseudo slang effect. For example, if I run a typical Gale Force plus Firesweep and Flashing Blade combo, I normally cannot proc Gale Force in one round of combat because it's a 5 cooldown and I only get 4 charges from 2 hits. However, with Times Pulse, Gale Force goes down to a 4 cooldown and I can proc it immediately. This is great because if I make another attack, I already pre-charge the next Gale Force. If I retreat instead, on the next player phase, Times Pulse kicks in again and Gale Force goes back to 4 cooldown. A similar thing can be done with Legendary Hector's Ostia's Pulse or just Infantry Pulse for infantry units. These skills only work one time, so unlike Times Pulse, I cannot repeatedly put Gale Force back to 4 cooldown. However, for shorter fights like in Arena, I may only need it to work one time, and that's perfectly fine. A main takeaway is that if you look at all the skills we just talked about, a lot of them have class restrictions. Flyers and Cavaliers cannot use Flashing Blade, for example. They can't use Null Seed Disrupt, Special Spiral, Close Call, or even Times Pulse. But you know who can use all these skills? Infantry units. These guys have gotten so many good options available, so if you want to build a Firesweep unit, maybe one with high investment, definitely take that into account. If you want to build a Firesweep Cavalier, then I would look into the low skills if you want more combative power in the B slot. For Flyers, well, at least you can use all the new attack and speed A skills and the oath buffs as well. Besides that, you can try out chill speed or defense, and guard isn't bad either. Last on the list for today, let's talk about Sacred Seals. If we aren't concerned with using Heavy Blade or Flashing Blade for our build, there are some nice alternative seals. Darting Blow is great as plus 6 speed is a really nice complement to any A skill like Life and Death. You also have Sturdy Blow for plus 4 attack if you need more damage instead. Brazen attack and speed can be absolutely disgusting, but since Firesweep users aren't supposed to get hit anyway, it is a bit unusual unless your Firesweep unit takes a hit on the enemy phase. To support your Firesweep units, we have Chill Speed and Chill Defense. These are great since you can put them on any allied teammate, and something like -7 speed on the fastest enemy can help your Firesweeper take them down. A Sacred Seal that doesn't exist yet, and one that many didn't think would ever exist, is Swift Sparrow. Getting plus 4 attack and speed on initiations is great, and as mentioned earlier, if it were to happen, then running Flashing Blade 4 as an A skill may not be as bad since we get that extra attack and speed in our build still. The reason I bring up Swift Sparrow as a seal is that it was found on an enemy in one of the new Grandmaster Tactic Drill maps. This could have just been for the sake of map difficulty, but we've had Sacred Seals been leaked before. Attack Tactic, for example, was shown in a Nintendo tips and tricks video, but had not existed in game yet. Maybe this is a sneak peek of what's to come since we have another Tempest Trials for New Year's. Now that would be a good way to start off 2020. That's all I got for this video. I had a lot of fun discussing our new Firesweep Axe, as well as the kind of crazy builds you can create these days with the newer skills from this year. I'm really happy I could finally give my Summer Innes his Firesweep Axe, but I am disappointed I can't really give him anything other than a better attack and speed A skill. I definitely want to make a few more Firesweep units because they've come incredibly handy for modes like Arena Assault, and every time I use Legendary Marth against a full dragon team, it puts a huge smile on my face. He basically gets a Firesweep plus breaker effect against dragons, and that combo just avoids so many annoying builds. Thanks for watching this video. I have one more coming up for Christmas, so stay tuned for that. I'll see you guys soon.